Hello everybody and welcome back. All right, this is the final video in the triad of videos, that being the how to set up OBS, how to set up Adobe Premiere, and this video, the final video, is how to set up Photoshop, I guess. Not really set up, but more just how to make a thumbnail for the videos that you have recorded with OBS and edited with Premiere. Now, I want to start off by saying you can actually do this in other softwares that aren't Photoshop. It's actually easier than like how I said in Premiere. You don't have to use Premiere to edit. You can use something like Sony Vegas, but it's a lot easier to edit thumbnails in anything that isn't Photoshop. So you can actually do this in GIMP or paint.net if you want. It's just going to be a couple different key bindings and just a couple different settings, and obviously the layout is going to be different. Now, I also wanted to say that I don't know if I'm going to do this, but I might put these 3 videos on my second channel and then unlist them on this channel, just so that the videos page on my channel looks a little bit better, a little bit more cleaned up. So if one day you come to the main Starbuck page and you don't see the videos, it's probably because they're on the other channel. Now, also, before we get into this video, I actually wanted to do a section where we go through the previous videos and I kind of tidy up and fix some of the changes that I've made. And what I mean by that is, if we go to, for example, the OBS video, in the comments, I have made a bunch of like edits and things, and I've done the same with the Premiere video. So I'm going to go ahead and just go over these in video form really quickly. If you want to skip that part and you don't really care about all of the changes that I've made, then go ahead and skip to the time frame you see right here. All right, so starting off with the majority of the edits, this is the OBS tutorial video. Now, sadly, basically the week after I released this video, OBS released an update, like I think 3 days after, which kind of sucks. And they changed a lot to do with the output settings. Now, that's not to say that that makes this video useless. It's still super useful. It's just that a lot of the changes that were made kind of makes the video seem as if it's more outdated than it actually is. And I believe I've said this with the previous videos, but I always recommend that you watch other people's videos besides my own, just to get as many people's different views on how to set up OBS, how to use Premiere and all that. Okay, starting off with the first edit, I basically went over how the day that it was updated, OBS that is, they released a bunch of new settings for the output. Here is my current OBS settings that I'm currently using. I'm gonna be honest, I don't really understand their new settings. It's kind of confusing. They have something called, here, I'll go to recording because it's a bit better of a section. So if you want, you can copy all of these settings just to kind of show. Yeah, so they have this new section called preset where they have different presets. Usually this used to only be for if you were doing CPU recording. So it's kind of confusing. I leave it on good quality just because I think that's fine. It also just, I think, defaulted to this quality, so you know, I'm leaving it as is. As for the multipass mode, I don't know what this is. I'm leaving it on 2 passes at 1/4 resolution just because I think this is the default that it did. Again, I'm so sorry, I don't know what the heck the new settings are. They're like super advanced. If you have issues with slow, go down to medium. Medium actually will probably be best for most people on like lower end computers. I bet you can even try going to fast. I doubt these two look good. I wouldn't go below P1 and P2. And as for the multipass mode, again, no idea what it does. I'm guessing this is the worst, this is the best, and I'm just going in the middle. Next up, I'm pretty sure in this video I said that you should, whenever you live stream to YouTube, you should leave the videos unlisted when you're done so that they don't clog up your videos tab. Luckily, YouTube also did an update basically like the week or 2 weeks after I released the video. So now you can see all of your shorts go into one little tab and all of your live streams also go into one tab. It used to be that everything, all your shorts and live streams would just show up here, and it'd be really ugly because like every other video I'd have like a short or a live stream and it was really bad. But I no longer recommend that you unlist your live streams. Leave them public when you're done. Same thing with the shorts, just leave them public. You no longer have to like unlist them or private them after a certain amount of time. The next edit, this is just a thing that is kind of good to know. If you have streamer mode on in Discord, it will show that you're live streaming. Your icon will go from like green to like a purple, and then when you click on it, it'll say like this person's live streaming, and you know, someone can click on it and watch you live stream. If you don't want your friends to know that you're live streaming because you're kind of embarrassed about it or whatever, or you just don't want streamer mode to be turned on because streamer mode is super annoying, it like mutes all of your notifications, I recommend you turn it off in Discord and you should be fine. Next up, I was saying I changed my bitrate for streaming, and as you can see, I did change it. I went to 6,000 because I now stream on both YouTube and Twitch at the same time, and they both require 6,000, so it's easier for me to just use 6,000, have it be congruent. But again, if you're only streaming on YouTube and you're not dual streaming, then you can definitely go higher than this. Recommend, you know, whatever I said in the video, 9,000 or 12,000. In the final edit here, I also changed the track bitrate as well, because like I said, I now stream on Twitch, and Twitch requires 128 audio bitrate for the stream track, so you know, just change that. And those are all of the changes for the OBS video, at least currently. I mean, if I add more, you know, they'll be here. For the Adobe Premiere video, I only had one change. I'm gonna go ahead and open up this Cuphead video to kind of show what I mean. So in here, I said, I just want to show a good transition is called push in the effects tab, useful for different stuff, which is true. So if you go up to the effects tab and you type in push, you can see it's right here. That's actually what I use in the beginning of all of my videos. You can see it's pushing the video frame over into the black stars background. And it also, you can see the Cuphead logo. It's pushing the Cuphead logo along with it. And then I also do the opposite on the other side. I push it away. Yeah, just a really cool transition. If you want to use that, it's really useful. And those are all of the edits that I've made for the previous videos. Again, if I add any more, they will be in the comment section of those. I just thought I'd go over them in video form right here, right now. All right, with that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into the whole point of this video, how to make a thumbnail for the YouTube video that you've probably made by now. For this video, we're going to make a thumbnail for the Cuphead video that is currently non-existent. As you can see from my channel, I still have not made this video yet, but it will, by the time this video goes out, it will have been made, so you can go and look and see the thumbnail before we actually make it in this video if you want. So first things first, go ahead and open Adobe Photoshop. This should work on like just about any version of Photoshop. I don't think I'm going to be showing anything that's like a new feature or whatever. So if you have a super old version of Photoshop from like 2016, this should still work just the same. Okay, first things first, we're going to go ahead and go up to the top left and hit create new. I already have a saved preset for 1920 by 1080, but I'm going to create one right now. So you can see, you can just pick any of these and then go up here into the preset details and go ahead and make this 1920 by 1080. You can see just like that. We want to make sure this is on pixels, 300 resolution, pixels per inch. In the advanced option, we have don't color manage and square pixels. This is just how I like everything. If you want, you can go up here and hit the little save icon that will put it in your save tab like I have here. Now this right here is going to be a 1080p image, and technically YouTube I think only allows up to 720p, but I still make them in 1080p and YouTube just automatically scales them down. When you first open Photoshop, chances are it won't look like this. If you go ahead and go into the top right to this little icon right here, you can see different workspaces. I have my own custom workspace right here, but for the sake of this video, we're going to go ahead and go to the Essentials workspace, and that should look something like this. You can edit the sizing of your different tabs on the left or right side if you want. All right, very quickly, we actually have to understand how Photoshop works before we can use it. So I'm going to go ahead and explain all the different buttons and things. If you don't care about that and you already know how to use Photoshop, then go ahead and skip to the timestamp you see here. All right, first things first, let's go ahead and go over what all of the different tabs and icons you see here, what they all do and things like that, because it's probably pretty overwhelming to see this. Starting off on the right hand side, we have the color This is where you can select what color you have. You can select these different squares right here to change the color. Right here, we have the most important tab called the Layers tab. This is going to be where you spend most of your time moving things around and getting confused, because it can probably be pretty confusing whenever you first start using Photoshop. So how you want to think of layers are kind of like, think of this as your canvas, as if you were an artist. The first layer, and I'm only using these as examples, the first layer we're going to have is a mountain. So this is your background layer. Then in the foreground, we're going to have a person. He's not transparent, so ignore that. And then above that layer, we're going to have a sun. So layers are helpful because each of these are separate. As you can see with these eye icons, I can turn off each of them individually. The easiest way to understand it is anything at the bottom of the list is going to be behind everything at the top of the list. So for example, this sun is at the very top. So the sun is going to be on top of the guy and on top of the background. If I move the guy up a layer, you can see now the guy is above the sun and above the background. If I move the background to the top, you can see it removes everything because everything is now behind the image of the mountains. Hopefully that makes sense. If it doesn't, we're going to kind of go into a bit more how we structure our different layers and stuff. Next up, we have the History tab. This one's pretty useful. You can undo and redo things. You can also, by the way, press Control Z or Control Z and you will undo an action that you've done. So that is pretty helpful if you make a mess up. As for adjustments, we won't be getting too much into these in this video, but they are pretty useful. You can see you can adjust the brightness and contrast. You can adjust the exposure, the vibrance, the hue and saturation, the color balance, the black and white levels. You can put color filters on. These are super useful to know, but again, we're not really going to mess around with them too much. I don't want to confuse you in this video. Over here on the left, you'll see our tools right here. Depending on your version of Photoshop, if you have a newer-ish version, I think they started doing it in 2020. If you hover over an icon, it will actually tell you what that different icon does. And if you right-click the icon, it will give you hidden tools in these different lists. So for example, if we go down to here, this is the rectangle shape tool. If we right click it, you can see we have the circular tool, triangle tool, the line tool, the custom shape tool. So make sure you go through these and kind of see what each of them have behind them. A lot of these different tools also have different key combinations to them. For example, right here, we have the eraser tool and it tells you the letter E activates the eraser tool. So if you look over at the toolbar, if I press E, I'm not hovering over it. If I press E, it will switch over to the eraser tool. And there are different key combinations for each of these. You can see me switching through some of these. Some of them are useful to know, some of them aren't. All right, and before we can finally get started, go ahead and go up to Edit, go to Preferences, and go to General. And there are a couple settings we might want to change. In Interface, you might want to change your color theme from like a grayish or light gray to a black, just to make it a bit darker. I think this is default, which is fine, but I like it to be super dark. I'm going to kind of show all of these different ones, even though some of them you won't need. One useful thing, if we go up to tools, make sure zoom with scroll wheel is on. I'll explain that in a second. Again, I'm just going to go through some of these. You can copy down my settings if you want, but some of them won't really matter too much, I don't think. Like a lot of these towards the bottom, they aren't going to do anything for us, but I thought I'd show them anyways. Okay, so zoom on scroll, that's the one that I wanted to show. That lets you use your scroll wheel to zoom in and out. Okay, finally, we can actually get started with making the thumbnail. So like I said, we're making a thumbnail for the Cuphead video that I am currently working on. So before we can just construct a thing out of midair, we first have to kind of think about what we want in the thumbnail. The main key parts you want for a thumbnail are background, a main character, and text. I'm going to use my previous thumbnails as an example. For example, let's take this Rainbow Six video. This is a pretty easy one to use. As you can see, we have a background, that being the new Rainbow Six map. We have a main character, that being Solus, the new character from Rainbow Six. And we also have the text, which is the Rainbow Six logo. Those are only 3 different elements. Yes, it is that easy. You just need 3 different things. You can get more advanced with some of these. For example, in the Fortnite one here, you can see we have the background, the main character, the text, but then I also added a little RTX icon, and I added a face over it, and I added some more text over that, and that's just to kind of fit in with the title of the video. That's another thing you got to keep in mind. You want to use trends with the games, or a kind of gimmick with your title. For example, if we scroll down over here, another Rainbow Six video. I'm using a lot of the Rainbow Six icons, but anyways, you can see I titled the video Out of Pocket Rainbow Six Moments. So as you can see, we have the background, the main character, the text, but then I also added a pocket and an arrow coming out of the pocket because the video is called Out of Pocket Rainbow Six Moments. I kind of went in with that gimmick. You can also, if you're making a video, go ahead and search for different things. These are probably actually a bad example because a lot of people use Blender for them. Like this one was probably made in Blender by like a professional thumbnail artist. And we're not really wanting to do that. Your thumbnail can also be simple. It can just be a screenshot from the game that's funny. I guess while we're on the trend of talking about Rainbow Six, we can see these new thumbnails. This one has the new girl who's yet to be released. They have a background, they have text, and then they have a little gun in front of it. This one's super simple, just has a background, the girl, some text, and that's really it. So again, kind of look around and see different people, what they're doing, and also find your own style. So first things first, we need a background image. I went ahead and searched Cuphead background, and I'm thinking I'm going to use one of the ones from a more known map, or at least a map that is one of my favorites. You can also search specifics, Cuphead dragon background. I kind of like the dragon map. You can see a lot of these won't work because they already have the dragon in them. Okay, so I can't really find the one that I wanted. I either wanted the dragon background or the bee background, just because those have some pretty vibrant colors. But one that I did find was the 8-ball level, which is actually also pretty fun. So I thought, why not use that? We're gonna go ahead and right click, save as, and make sure you know where you save it. I'm just saving it to my videos file folder, whatever. Sometimes when you download a photo, it will be in a weird file format that Photoshop doesn't support. And for that, I recommend you get, I don't know if Chrome has it, but this is the extension that I use, WebP/AVIF image converter extension. It's super useful. Sometimes, as you can see, this one right here of Miss Chalice, you can see they save it as a WebP, and Photoshop can't actually use this. So instead, what I would do is I would right click, convert, and save image as, and as you can see, it's now saved as a PNG. And now that we have our background, that also brings us into our next thing. We need a main subject, and I thought I would use Miss Chalice because she's one of the newer characters that people really like. This one's a pretty nice image. I guess we'll go ahead and just use this one. I'm also going to download this one just in case we want to use that. I also want to just get Cuphead himself if we can, because obviously that's pretty iconic. So we're going to go ahead and save that. I'm not going to do Mugman. I feel kind of bad because me and Riley we only played Mugman, but it's better to do Chalice because people like her more. A PNG allows you to have transparent backgrounds, such as this one right here. You can see it's transparent. Sometimes photos on Google will try and trick you, such as this one. It looks like it has a transparent background, the checkerboard, but if you can see it from the thumbnail, chances are it's not actually a transparent background. For example, this one appears as a white background, but when you click on it, it goes transparent. Same with, what was the one I just clicked on? I think this one. You can see it's a white background. I click on it, it turns transparent. That's how you know that these are true transparent photos. And again, we want it to be transparent because if it's not, such as this one, I'm going to use this one as an example. If it's not, then it's going to look something like this, and it's going to be really ugly. You're going to have a giant border around your photo, and you do not want that. Finally, we need the text for the image. Now, I already have a file for the text. I have an entire folder filled with different icons for different games that I play. And you can see right about right here, I already have the Cuphead logo. But you would want to go ahead and find a logo for whichever game you have. If you're doing a Splatoon video, then just find the highest quality you can of an icon for a game. And you can also keep in mind some of them, if you find one that's black, like this one, but the logo's actually white, you can invert the colors and change them. For example, this one of Apex Legends, usually Apex leaves it as white, and you can actually see it's been a while since I've played Apex. In this video right here, you can see I actually made the text white. So even if it's black or if it's white and you want to flip it around to be the opposite of what it is, you can do that. So keep that in mind as well. You can also cut different things out. For example, this is the Cuphead one. I don't really care for the don't deal with the devil, so we're going to cut that out and only have the Cuphead logo itself. So now that we have our images, let's go ahead and drag them on. And when we drag them on, you'll see over in the layers, we only have one currently. And that is the background. If you go ahead and just click on the layers tab over here, you'll see it'll start laying them on top of each other. Let's also go ahead and get our Cuphead logo right there. And very quickly, I guess I'll go over, if you cannot find, for whatever reason, the character that you want, you can't find a transparent version of them. One example I have is like for Call of Duty, a lot of the Call of Duty characters, like this one right here, this is a super old video, but they don't have PNGs. They probably do now. They didn't have PNGs of these different characters when they came out. For example, this skin and this one, they didn't have a transparent background for it. So what you want to do for those are find the full quality image, for example, this right here, or you can even go into the different game that you're in. For example, for this one, I went into Warzone, I clicked on the character and I took a screenshot of the character. Go ahead and bring it into Photoshop. I'm going to go ahead and go to File and Open. And I'm going to open this Cuphead one right here. And we're going to cut him from the background. So I'm going to show this real quick because it's super useful to know. So what we're going to do is we're going to uncheck the little lock over here to unlock the layer. And I'm also going to add a layer mask. This is so that anything that is done over here, you can see if I erase a bunch of stuff, it's not actually done to the image. If I disable the layer mask, you can see it removed everything I just did, and I can re-enable it if I want. So this is really good to have just so that you don't accidentally, mess something up that you need to undo later. So anyways, go ahead and select the layer mask over here. And now we're going to press P on the keyboard to get the pen tool. Make sure that you're in the actual pen tool right here. And then what we're going to do, we're going to zoom in and we're just going to go along and select along the border of Cuphead here. You can do as many dots as you need. Basically just go around and start clicking. You can also click and hold to make curves, make it a bit easier. I don't do this because I just prefer clicking and dragging. I also should say it doesn't have to be perfect. As you can see right here, I'm kind of cutting off a lot of his shoe. If you make it look decent enough, then it should be fine. I forgot to mention as well something that is super useful. So obviously we have the scroll wheel to zoom in and out. Most tools, if you're in them and you need to move around like you see here, instead of pressing H to get to the move tool and to move around like this, what you can do is while you're in a tool, if you hold the space bar, you can see a little hand pop up. So hold space, click and drag, and then release space, and you'll be back to the tool that you want. But anyways, so we're done cutting him out. We still have some missing parts, for example, right here and in his little cup like handle right here. We're going to get to that in a second. So go ahead and sometimes you won't be able to delete the background without having a second layer. So what you need to do is just go down to here to create new layer, click it, and then drag this new layer below. It's an empty layer, so we don't need to worry about anything. And then reselect the layer mask. And now you can right click, go to make selection. We're going to leave this all default. You can see it now turns into the marching ants. That's what these are called. And when we hit delete, it actually deleted the opposite. So Control Z. What we're going to do is we're going to go to select inverse. So we're going to select the opposite of what we selected, and then we're going to hit delete. As you can see, that cuts him free. So anyways, we have him cut out. You can press Control plus D to deselect everything. And now what we're going to do is we're going to do the same for the inside of his little cup handle right here. There we go. You can see that looks a little bit better. And now we have the finished cutout. There are little bits here, but I'm not going to bother with those. And you can see it doesn't look half bad. I went super fast on this. You can tell like in the cup area or the handle area. So if you take your time, you can make this more perfect, but it won't really matter because we can actually kind of hide our mistakes. I'll go over that a bit later on. So once you're done with this, press Control, Shift, and S. and that's going to bring up this little box right here. We're going to go ahead and go down to this drop down, and we're going to select PNG. You can name this whatever. I'm just going to name this cut out because we cut out Cuphead, and we're going to go ahead and hit save. It's going to ask us how we want to save it. I just choose largest file size. It's going to have the best quality. We're going to hit OK. And now we can go back to our image. Let me delete the old one we had here. Let me also hide these different layers so we only have this background. And now, as you can see, if we bring in this image, boom, we have a cutout. So I thought I'd go over that just in case people need it. Again, we're not really going to be using this image, but it's still useful to know if you were to do something like this. Okay, let's go ahead and start designing the actual thumbnail itself. So starting off, I disabled everything except for the background. We're going to be needing this first and foremost. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over here to the layers tab, and we're going to select the background layer. As you can see, if I turn it off and on, you can tell which one it is. That's an easy way to kind of tell like what is what if you don't name them properly, which I never name my stuff. So what we're going to do is we're going to press Control and T while we've selected the backgrounds layer. And this is going to highlight the background layer for us. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to resize this with the little boxes on the corners. You can see because this is sprite art, it has a couple blemishes, I guess you'd call them, like the background or the bottom ground being cut off. So I'm going to kind of zoom this in a little bit more just to kind of make it look a bit nicer. And you can see this looks good. You can deselect it by just clicking away. I like to click over on the layers tab. You can see this is our background. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a blur to this because it'll kind of look weird if you just have characters on top. Since the background isn't blurred here, the character kind of blends in, not in a good way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the background layer. We're going to go up to filter, blur, Gaussian blur. This is the best blur. Only use this blur. I mentioned that in the Adobe Premiere video. And now we're going to select how much it's blurred as. I recommend staying between like 2 and 10. 2 is pretty decent. It's just a slight blur. And I wouldn't go above 10 because even 10 is pretty crazy. For this, I'm going to just do, let's see how 4 looks. 4 looks pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and hit OK to save that. And as you can see over here, it adds the blur. We can turn it on and off with these little icons to see what it would look like in between. As you can see, I don't know if YouTube compression will show this well, but you can see the difference that it made. And very quickly, if you do want to rename your things, you can just double click the title and rename them. All right, next up, we need to decide where we're going to place Cuphead and Chalice. First, I need to decide which version of Chalice I'm going to use. I think I'm going to use this one, and the reason why is because as we can see here, Cuphead is kind of leaning more towards this way. He's going to look better over here than if he were over here. He could be on both sides, but I just think he's going to look better over here. And this Chalice is going to look better over here because, again, she's leaning to the left. So it's good for her to be on the right. Again, she could be over here if we really wanted to, but in my opinion, she's going to look better over here. Don't worry, we're going to get back to this one. I'm going to use this one as an example. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use Control T. I'm going to select Cuphead, and I'm going to use Control T and kind of size him up and down, and kind of, you can also rotate him. If you go, you can see my little icon change to a rotate. There we go. Another thing to keep in mind is the YouTube icons. So as you can see in these, in the bottom right over here, you have a time icon, and you also have a giant red bar. So you never want to put anything super important in this little corner right here, or at the very, very thin bottom, because it's going to be covered up by the YouTube red bar and the YouTube timestamp. It also will look different on mobile. So make sure you go on YouTube mobile and you kind of see how large they are, because the icons for timestamps and things are a lot bigger on different devices than they are on computer. Once we get them where we want, we're going to go ahead and add the logo here. Now, like I said earlier, I don't want this bottom bit. I just want it to say Cuphead only. And if you look over on the right, you can see these little icons, this little file icon, I guess you'd call it. That means that the image that has this icon is something known as a smart image. So how you can think of this is this image right here is in its own folder, I guess you could say. If I try and mess with this, if I try and erase something, you can see it will tell me that this object can't be erased because it is a smart image, and it will ask me to rasterize the image to edit it. I don't want to do this because if you rasterize an image, as we see if we hit OK, you would think that this is fine. It doesn't change anything. But the problem is, if you change the sizing of it while it's rasterized, it can make it a bit more blurry than it was before. So for example, you saw just there, I moved the image to be super short and then made it super large. And now it is very blurry, very not good compared to if I undo that, remake this a smart object. If I make this super tiny, as you can see, it keeps all of its pixels with it. So when we can, we want to try to not rasterize images if possible. So then that begs the question, how do we change this if we're not allowed to erase this bottom bit? So what we're going to do is we're going to double click the icon and it's going to bring us into a new tab up here. You can see our different tabs. This is the one that we worked on. This is the Cuphead logo. And this is the main image. So like I said, it's like entering a different folder. We basically entered the folder of Cuphead. And now what we can do is you can see the icon is gone. So we can actually edit this. If we wanted to, we can erase it. What I'm going to do is select M, the square marquee tool. And I'm going to go ahead and select this image, drag my square over what I want to delete. And then I'm going to just hit the delete key. And as you can see, if I press Ctrl D to deselect, we now only have the Cuphead logo. Now you'll notice if I go back, it hasn't updated here yet. So what I need to do is on this tab, I need to press Ctrl S. That will save this to the file. So now if we go back, you can see, bam, the thing is gone. We no longer have the bottom bit. And before you ask, no, it does not do it to the source image. If we go to the icons folder and I refresh, you can see the Cuphead logo still has this. So doing any edits will not actually edit the original files that you have unless you save over them. Okay, now that we have the Cuphead logo, I'm going to go ahead and arrange this how I'd like it. And now to add some finishing touches, as you can see, this thumbnail is kind of bland, kind of boring. So what we're going to do is we're going to add depth in the form of shadows and outlines. So we're going to start off by doing this with Cuphead right here. Go ahead and select the layer that you want to do this to. Go ahead and go over to the effects tab right here. You can click on that. And we're going to start off by doing an outer glow. The two we're going to use are outer glow and drop shadow. So go ahead and select outer glow, and this is going to open a new little tab. You're going to want to go ahead and copy everything you see here. And once you're done copying this, go ahead and click make default. That's going to make this the default. So every time you click on the effects and outer glow, it's going to immediately bring up those settings that you just saved. As you can see with this, it added an outline to Cuphead. We can change the color of it here if we wanted to. It could look interesting making his outline his red. I think I might actually do that. Usually I keep them white. As you can see, this one has a white outline, white outline, white outline, white outline. But for this case, I think it actually looks good, and we're gonna make hers yellow, but we'll get into that in a second. You can change the size of the outline with the size thing right here. I'm gonna keep it at, I think maybe 16 seems about good. And once we're done, we're gonna go ahead and hit OK. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna click on Chalice and we're gonna do the same thing. If you want as well, you can hold the Alt key and click and drag a filter to another thing. For example, we just clicked and dragged Chalice's settings over to the Cuphead layers. So you can see now this Cuphead has the settings that we had for Miss Chalice. That's super useful if you're going to do the same outline on a bunch of different things. Next up, we got to do the Cuphead logo. This one, I think I'm going to keep it nice and simple. We're just going to do a simple white background. I think that looks good with the already black shadow that Cuphead has. So you have white, black, white. I think that looks pretty nice. I'm actually also noticing that Miss Chalice has a couple different weird artifacts. You can see right here and like these lines and stuff. I don't know why it's doing that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open the Miss Chalice thing. I'm going to use the eraser tool and I'm going to kind of go around the edges and just erase a couple things. As you can see, I got most of it. For some reason, I cannot find this one pixel right here, so I'm just gonna leave it. No one will notice. So now this thumbnail itself is already looking pretty good. If we wanted to, we could add like another icon right here. The name of this video is Cuphead Moments That Drove Us Insane. So I could add a little face here that is like a guy going insane or something, and that would kind of fit. But I'm not going to do that. I think it's good as it is. We still need to add the shadow that I mentioned. Oh, also, by the way, this is what I was talking about with the cutout right here. If we add an outer glow, you can see it kind of hides all of our imperfections that we had. If you remember earlier, we had some issues where there was some white hanging over here. You can see there is a giant missing chunk here and a missing chunk here. All of a sudden with the outline, it kind of fixes itself. You can't really tell that we messed up a lot. So again, keep in mind, even if you're kind of making it choppy like I did, a lot of the mess ups will be hidden with both the outer glow. Okay, I'm moving Miss Chalice and Cuphead a little. Like I said, you can move them at any time. All right, like I said, now we need the shadow layer. So go ahead and select whichever thing you're doing. We're gonna do Cuphead first again. We're gonna go ahead and go to effects and drop shadow. Again, copy the settings that you see here. This is the color that I'm using. I just like to use a light gray. Go ahead and select make default. Now what we're going to want to do is this one, we're going to kind of want to mess around with the settings a bit more. I'm going to keep this dark black for now, just so you can see a bit better. First things first, we need to set the angle 90 degrees. As you can see, if we start messing with this, it comes down from the top below. If I mess with the angle of this, it messes with the angle of the shadow. You can kind of see that better over here. For this video, I think we're going to keep the angle just straight at 90 degrees. I think that's kind of nice, just having it be top down. I'm going to mess with the distance to where we can barely see the outline coming out. You can barely see the black here. And now we're going to mess with the size. We're going to make it kind of more blurry. And then I'm also going to change the color back to a lighter gray. When it's dark black, you can kind of see it a bit better, but I like to kind of blend it in. And again, we're gonna mess with the size. There we go. I think that's about good. On second thought, we might change the angle. I'm gonna make this 120 and kind of give it a bit more distance. There we go. I think that looks nice. You might not be able to tell the difference, but as you can see, if I turn it on and off, you can see it makes a major difference to how Cuphead looks. It kind of looks like he's coming off of the background. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold the Alt key and click on drop shadow, and I'm going to drag that over to Miss Chalice. And I'm also going to drag that over to the Cuphead logo. And as you can see, they now all have the drop shadow. And you can edit this per character. For example, Miss Chalice, I think she might need it to be a little bit more distant from her. So there we go. I'm going to do that. I'm going to keep that at 45. And as for the logo, you can barely even tell it's there. So I'm going to kind of edit that a little bit more. I'm actually, for the logo, I'm going to turn off use global light. And it's going to reset that at 90 degrees. And then I'm just going to have this coming straight down. I think that'll look good. Use global light. Basically, all of your images will share the same angle unless you turn this off. So there we go. It's a super simple thumbnail, but it honestly does the job. I think this looks good. Make sure you zoom out and or step away from your monitor to kind of see. Obviously, this is kind of how it would look on mobile. We want to make sure that we can read everything. And from here, I can read Cuphead. Chalice is a bit pixelated, but like I said, you won't be able to see that when they're about this size on desktop. So it should look fine like this. When you're done, I recommend you press Control S to save. And I recommend you save the PSD until you publish the video. So I'm going to put this PSD file in the Cuphead folder right here. I go ahead and hit save. Because we saved the actual Photoshop file, if we go ahead and open this, you can see that it saves all of our different layers, basically everything that we just did, so that we can make changes if we need to. All right, so how do you put this onto YouTube? Go ahead and press Control, Shift, and S. Go ahead and go down to this drop-down menu right here, and we're going to want to select JPEG. Now, the reason we want to select JPEG over PNG is because the file size will be smaller, which is better for YouTube. If you didn't know, PNG is higher quality and allows for transparency, but the file size will be larger. That's why we want to do JPEG, you see right here, because YouTube will have a better time with it. YouTube only allows like 8 megabyte thumbnails, I think it is. I'm going to go ahead and save this into my Cuphead folder that I've been using to make my video with. So we're going to go ahead and hit save. It's going to ask us about the quality. I'm going to keep this on 12. It should be good doing the maximum quality. Everything else is fine. We're going to go ahead and hit OK, and we can exit out of Photoshop. And now you can see when we go into our Cuphead folder, here's the image right here. It's ready to be sent over to YouTube. Also, when you're done, you can delete all of your remaining files, all of our Cuphead images that we used. Yes, you can even delete them even if you're thinking of going back. As you can see, we just deleted all those. I'm going to clear my recycling bin so we have nothing in there. And now if I reopen the Photoshop file, all of the images we had will still be here. As you can see, everything's here and nothing is in my recycling bin and nothing is in my videos folder. Very quickly before I end the video, I'm going to go over text because a lot of you are probably going to want to put text in your different thumbnails. So go ahead and hit the T key and click anywhere. It should create a new text layer. You can tell by the little T right here. Let's go ahead and type our text. We're going to type in insane because I don't know, because you know Cuphead drives you insane. If we select all of our text, you can see it gets inverted. And what we can do is we can actually change the color of it by just clicking up here. So let's say I want my text to be a kind of blue like this. I'm going to click right here. It won't show up yet because obviously this is inverted. But if we click away, I'm just going to click in the layers tab. You can see our text is now blue. I'm going to go ahead and Control T to move this around. Now, another thing you can do is I'm going to double click this to select the full thing. You can select different fonts, as you can see right here. You can see them changing through. You can also favorite different fonts that you like. This is the Fortnite font, apparently, I guess. So if you have a certain font that you use for thumbnails, I use this one right here. I don't know how to pronounce that. Helvetus. I use this one for a lot of my thumbnails. As you can see, I used it here. I used it here. I used it right here, right here. You can see I use it a lot. Go ahead and use whatever text that you like best or whichever one fits. If you wanted to as well, you can select certain letters and change their color. For example, for this one, we're just going to have it be like this. You can do different cool effects like that. Now, like we did before, we're going to go ahead and add a outer glow to this. So go ahead and hit outer glow. I'm going to hit reset to default so that we reset it to this one that we have that we set earlier. And we can edit the size of the outer glow. You can do the same thing for the drop shadow if you want. I'm not going to do that for this because I'm not even going to be using this insane text. One thing I thought I would show that is pretty cool is the ability to add multiple outer glows. This is really cool and you'll see why in a second. That's to do things like in this, you can see the text here for the OBS thumbnail. It goes from white to pink and back to white. And I've done that for different other ones. You can see this one, it goes from pink to black and to white. So it's a super cool effect that you can do. So what we're going to want to do is we go ahead and we put down our base color, obviously that being white. I'm going to go up here, right click and hit convert to smart object. And then we're going to add another outer glow to this. This one, we're going to change the color. I'm going to make it black. We're just going to stick with black and white. Or actually, no, we can do blue. We can do the blue. That kind of looks cool. We're going to go ahead and hit OK. You can adjust the size if you want. We're going to hit OK again. And as you can see, we now have two outer glows at the same time. If we want, we can even add another one. You can add as many as you want. Convert this into a smart object. So now this is a smart object again, and we can add another outer glow. I'm just going to keep this one as white. There we go. That kind of looks cool. As you can see, you make insane looking text. As you can see, insane. You can make insane effects with this. You can also do this with the characters if you wanted to. If I wanted to, I could have Cuphead go from red to white and back to red. But I'm just kind of keeping it simple. Actually, I might change that later on. Don't quote me on that. You might see that in the final thumbnail. But anyways, yeah, you can do this and it looks super cool. You can add on different layers, basically have different effects and things like that. So I am going ahead and changing Cuphead and Chalice to have the double outline. I should also say, make sure when you do this, you don't do it with the drop shadow on. If you have the drop shadow on first, and then you create a smart object and then you add an outline, you can see it's going to look super weird. So make sure that you remove the drop shadow, then convert it to a smart object, then add the outline. I'm going to make this one black. And then you can, when you're finally done with it, you can re-add the drop shadow to it. So there we go. Now this is the finished thumbnail. This looks a lot better, I think. And yeah, that's about it for this video. If I have anything to change, I will leave it in the comments. Like I said, watch other tutorial videos to learn more. But yeah, that's about it. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and give it a like, subscribe if you haven't already. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.